At 27, most people are focused on building their careers, traveling the world, or enjoying the freedom of adulthood. But for me, adulthood meant something entirely different, being financially responsible, not just for myself, but for my entire family. Lena, sweetheart, Pia's therapy bill came in today. My mother's voice crackled through the phone on a Sunday afternoon. It was the same conversation we had been having for months. I sighed, balancing my phone between my ear and shoulder while pulling up my banking app. How much this time, Mom? How did I end up in this situation? It was simple, really. My older sister, Pia, had what my mother called a career setback a year ago. That was putting it lightly. The truth? She had an emotional meltdown when she didn't get a promotion, dramatically quit her job on the spot, and then spent the next several months sulking about how life was unfair. I can't believe they picked Julia over me. Pia had sobbed into my shoulder the day she stormed out of her office for the last time. Do you know how hard I worked? How much I sacrificed? At the time, I assumed she would calm down, take a few weeks off, and find another job. Instead, weeks turned into months. Then an entire year passed, and she still refused to settle for anything less than she deserved. While she scrolled through job postings looking for positions with 5-day weekends and unlimited vacation time, I was the one making sure our parents' bills got paid, their fridge stayed stocked, and Pia continued seeing a therapist 4 times a week. The therapy is really helping, Mom would say as I transferred yet another chunk of my paycheck into their account. She's making progress. Progress? From where I stood, all I saw was more of my hard-earned money disappearing while Pia sat at home doing nothing. Meanwhile, I was working long hours at my marketing job, taking on extra freelance projects just to stay afloat. The stress was wearing me down, but I kept pushing forward, convincing myself that I was doing the right thing. But deep down, I knew something had to change. And that's when I had an idea, a perfect way to give all of us something to look forward to. A family trip to Rome. For months, I had been watching my parents grow wearier by the day. My mother's worry lines deepened, and my father's shoulders slumped lower with every passing week. The stress of supporting Pia, the endless cycle of her excuses, and the financial strain on all of us had taken its toll. That's when I came up with an idea, a family trip to Rome. Not just any trip. This would be a chance to escape, to breathe, to enjoy something beyond the daily grind of responsibilities and disappointments. A chance for my parents to experience something beautiful, something just for them. I spent weeks planning every detail. A luxury hotel with breathtaking city views. A cheese tasting tour for Mom. She had always dreamed of trying authentic Italian cheeses. A wine tasting excursion for Dad. He was a lover of fine red wines and always talked about visiting vineyards in Tuscany. Private skip-the-line tours of historic landmarks, sunset boat rides along the Tiber River, exclusive dining experiences in hidden Roman trattorias. I covered everything: the flights, the accommodations, the experiences down to the last detail. When I told my parents about it, my mother gasped, clutching her chest as if I had just handed her a winning lottery ticket. Lena, this is incredible, she whispered. Even my father, a man of few words, looked genuinely pleased. This will be good for us, he said, nodding approvingly. And Pia? Oh, that's nice, she muttered absent-mindedly while scrolling through her phone. I didn't expect much enthusiasm from her. After all, she wasn't even supposed to go. This was meant to be a trip for just my parents, a way to give them a break after everything they had endured. I imagined the 3 of us strolling along the cobblestone streets of Trastevere, sipping cappuccinos at quaint cafes, and finally seeing my parents smile again without the weight of stress pulling them down. I had no idea that my perfect plan would come crashing down before it even began. Life has a cruel way of unraveling even the best-laid plans. One moment, I was driving to meet a client, mentally running through my presentation, excited for the upcoming trip to Rome. The next, there was a deafening crash. The screech of metal, the force of impact slamming through my body, then nothing. I don't remember much about the accident. Just bits and pieces, the flashing lights of the ambulance, the distant voices of paramedics, the sterile brightness of the hospital room when I finally woke up. Pain deep, bone-weary pain pulsed through me. My head felt heavy, my body bruised and broken. As I tried to move, a sharp sting shot through my side. A nurse appeared beside me, adjusting my IV. "You're very lucky," she said softly. "The airbag saved you from the worst of it, but you took a serious hit. The surgery went well, but you'll need time to recover." Surgery. The word echoed in my head, sending a fresh wave of dizziness through me. That's when the door opened. My parents walked in, followed by Pia. Mom's face was unreadable, but she clutched the travel purse she had bought just for our Rome trip. Dad stood beside her, his expression carefully neutral. Pia looked mildly irritated, as if she had been inconvenienced by having to come to the hospital at all. I swallowed against the pain and forced a weak smile. "I'm so sorry," I croaked, my voice raw from the breathing tube. "We'll have to postpone the trip. I'll call the hotel today and reschedule everything for later this year." I expected sympathy, maybe a reassuring squeeze of my hand, but my mother just tilted her head. "Oh, there's no need to cancel anything, honey." I blinked, sure I had misheard her. "What?" She adjusted the strap of her purse. "Your father and I have been talking, and we think we should still go. You can rest here, and we'll take Pia with us instead." The words hit me harder than the crash itself. I stared at them, waiting for anyone to say it was a joke. "You were supposed to watch the house while we were gone," Pia added, arms crossed. "Since you can't, you'll need to hire someone. Make sure they're reliable." I lay there, completely frozen. I had just survived a life-threatening accident. I was stitched up, hooked to IVs, barely able to move, and they were talking about their vacation? The one I planned? The one I paid for? They actually waved and walked out, leaving me alone in that hospital room. The only sound that remained was the rhythmic beep of the heart monitor and the realization that my own family had abandoned me when I needed them most. I don't know how long I lay there, staring at the ceiling. Maybe minutes, maybe hours. The painkillers dulled the physical agony, but nothing could numb the raw ache inside my chest, the kind that had nothing to do with broken bones or stitches. I replayed the moment over and over again. They didn't even ask how I was feeling. Not about the surgery, not about the accident, not about anything. A nurse passed by, her footsteps pausing near my door. I must have looked terrible. My heart rate was probably spiking because she stepped inside, concern etched on her face. "Everything okay, honey? Your numbers are a bit high." I swallowed, my throat dry. "Could you—" I hesitated, then cleared my throat. "Could you please get my phone?" She nodded and disappeared for a moment, returning with a plastic hospital bag. My hands shook slightly as I pulled out my phone, relieved to see it wasn't damaged. The screen lit up. The background? A Christmas photo of me with my parents. I quickly changed it to the default wallpaper. At least something survived the crash. Then I opened my email. There it was, the Rome trip folder. All the confirmations, bookings, and itineraries I had spent months planning. I stared at them for a long moment, my finger hovering over the first reservation. Then I let out a slow, deliberate breath. If they want to treat me like a travel agent instead of a daughter, I'll act like one. And one by one, I started canceling everything. First, the hotel. A few clicks gone. No more luxury suite with a panoramic view of Municipio 9. Next, the private tours I had booked for them. Mom's highly anticipated cheese tasting tour, canceled. Dad's vineyard and wine excursion, gone. The private sunset cruise along the Trastevere, deleted. With each cancellation, something inside me shifted. I wasn't just taking back my money, I was taking back control. They had chosen to leave me behind. They had chosen to put Pia's comfort over my well-being. Fine. Let's see how well that works out for them. The last thing left to cancel? Their return flight. I hovered over the confirmation email, staring at the words. A small, petty part of me wondered how long it would take them to realize they were stranded in Italy without a way home. Would they figure it out immediately? Or maybe, just maybe, they'd get a taste of what it feels like to be left behind. With one final click, I canceled their return tickets. Then, I turned my phone on silent, set it face down on the bedside table, and closed my eyes. By the time they landed in Rome, they'd realized that actions have consequences even in families. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't going to clean up their mess. The first missed call came at 3:25 a.m. I knew exactly what had happened. They had landed in Rome and gone straight to check in at the hotel. only to realize they had no reservation. My phone buzzed on the bedside table, but I ignored it. By the time breakfast rolled around, I had 15 missed calls. By lunch, it was up to 40. The messages were piling up, too. I grabbed the back of my hospital meal menu and started keeping track, because at this point, it was pure entertainment. Missed calls, mom, 25 dad, 18 Katie, 48 text messages, 50 and counting. Voicemails, 21, I smirked. Let's see what's so urgent. Finally, when the count hit 51, I picked up my phone, wincing as I moved. Katie's messages came first. How could you be so cruel and selfish? We're standing in the hotel lobby with nowhere to go. You're absolutely heartless. I raised an eyebrow. Heartless? You mean like leaving your injured sister in the hospital so you could sip wine in Italy? Next was Mom. Isabella, I am so disappointed in you. This isn't how we treat family. We've never done anything like this to each other before. I don't understand why you're doing this to us. We're your parents. I actually laughed. Really? So leaving your daughter behind after a car accident is fine, but canceling your luxury vacation is where we draw the line? Then there was Dad. Call now. Fix this immediately. Your mother is crying. I shook my head. Oh, now they care about tears? The phone kept buzzing new messages, more missed calls. The hotel won't let us check in. Where are the tour reservations? What do you mean you canceled the return flights? I was scrolling through Katie's latest tantrum when Dr. Olivier walked in. He frowned at my phone, arms crossed. Miss Wilson, your phone has been ringing nonstop for hours. This is a hospital, not a call center. I winced. I'm sorry, doctor. It's just. Before I could explain, another call came in. Mom, doctor. Olivier sighed then, without hesitation, picked up the phone himself. Hello, this is Dr. Olivier from Memorial Hospital. I could hear my mom's sharp voice through the speaker even from across the room. I don't care about any operation. Put my daughter on the phone right now. She needs to fix what she did to us, doctor. Olivier's expression hardened. Without another word, he hung up. Then, he slipped my phone into his pocket. I'll be keeping this until after your surgery, he said firmly. You need to focus on healing, not dealing with this. I blinked. And then for the first time in days, I felt relief. For the next few days, everything was a blur of pain meds, physical therapy, and sleep. But for the first time in years, my life was silent. No calls, no guilt trips, no constant pressure to fix things. It was healing in its own way. Then, on day 4, something unexpected happened. Knock, knock. I turned my head as Corrine from marketing peeked into my hospital room. We brought contraband. She grinned, stepping inside with a cup of real coffee, not the terrible hospital stuff. Contraband? I repeated, my voice still hoarse from the medication. She nodded. And back up. Nick from accounting followed her in, holding a bag of pastries. I blinked. Why were they here? We figured you'd be getting lonely, Nick said, setting the pastries down. So we made a plan. The next day, Brittany and James from my team showed up, armed with magazines and the latest office gossip. The day after that, my cousin Mary, who I hadn't seen in months, came by with homemade soup. And then Brittany pulled up a color-coded schedule on her tablet. We've worked out a system, she announced. Someone from the office will stop by every day. I stared at them, completely speechless. After everything, I had assumed I was alone, that nobody would show up for me the way my own family hadn't. But here they were. I felt tears sting my eyes. You guys didn't have to do this. My voice cracked a little. James waved me off. Oh, please. After all the times you've saved our butts at work? This is nothing. Even my boss, Mr. Ryan, had called the hospital himself. Isabella, don't worry about a thing, he said in his usual gruff voice, though, this time, it sounded softer than usual. The accident happened during work hours, so our insurance covers you. You'll get a good payout. It should help with your recovery and more. I had spent my entire life pouring everything into people who didn't care. I had been the fixer, the provider, the one who sacrificed for others. And yet, the people who had actually shown up for me, the people who truly cared, weren't my family. They were my friends, my coworkers, and even distant relatives who had no obligation to me. And somehow, that realization didn't hurt. It felt freeing. On the fifth day, Dr. Olivier finally returned my phone. I think you're strong enough to handle this now, he said, placing it gently on the bedside table. But I'd understand if you wanted to leave it off a little longer. I stared at it for a moment, my hands hesitating before picking it up. Over 125 missed calls, countless text messages, dozens of voicemails. I exhaled slowly, bracing myself as I started scrolling from the beginning. At first, their messages were pleading. Mom, Isabella, you have to understand our side. We're family, we can work this out. Dad, come on, sweetheart. Let's be reasonable. Then came the guilt trips. Mom, how could you embarrass us like this? We don't deserve this treatment. Katie, I can't believe you'd do this to your own family. And finally, the anger. Katie, you won't believe the dump we're staying in. There are bed bugs. Dad's sleeping on a cot. We hear gunshots at night. Mom, we can barely afford food. We're eating from street vendors like homeless people. Dad, is this what you wanted? To make your parents suffer? I let out a short, humorless laugh. Now, suddenly, they wanted my help. Now, suddenly, they remembered I existed. A new message popped up as I was reading. Mom, we need return tickets home. Fix this now. I sighed, placed my phone face down on the table, and closed my eyes. Another knock at my door. It was Sophie from HR, holding a deck of cards and a bag of cookies she had smuggled in. Ready to learn poker? She asked with a grin. I looked at her, then at my phone, and I made a choice. I reached for the power button and turned my phone off completely. Deal me in. I was actually having a good day when they burst in. My physical therapist had just finished our session, and for the first time since the accident, I felt proud of myself. I had managed to walk a few steps on my own. Then I heard it, the sound of rolling suitcases on the hospital floor. My only warning. Seconds later, they stormed into my room like a hurricane. How dare you? My mother's face was red with fury, still in her travel clothes. How dare you do this to us? Right behind her, Katie dragged her designer suitcase, eyes blazing. The suitcase I had bought her for Christmas last year. Dad stood in the doorway, looking both angry and embarrassed. Nurse Kate, who had been adjusting the fourth, quickly stepped between them and my bed. Lower your voices, she warned. This is a hospital, not a circus tent. But they didn't listen. 3 weeks of frustration exploded out of Katie like a burst dam. Katie, she's fine here. She threw her hands up, motioning around my private hospital room. Look at her, lying in a clean bed, getting 3 meals a day, while we suffered. Something inside me snapped. Maybe it was the painkillers giving me courage, or maybe I had just finally had enough. Suffered? My voice was quiet but sharp. Let's talk about suffering, shall we? The room fell silent. For the past year, I have worked myself to exhaustion, paying the bills, buying groceries, covering Katie's therapy sessions while she sat at home, turning down jobs because they weren't perfect enough. Mom opened her mouth to speak. I raised my hand. Not this time. I planned this trip as a gift. I spent months organizing everything. I paid for it all with my own money. Then I got into a serious accident, needed emergency surgery, and what did you do? Did you ask how I was feeling? Did you care if I was okay? I stared them down, my voice steady. No. You took Katie, who hasn't contributed a single penny in over a year, on my vacation, while I lay in a hospital bed. I could see the first flickers of shame on Mom's face, but it didn't last long. Mom, you can afford to go to Rome anytime. Her voice was defensive, sharp. This might have been our only chance. Then Katie, my own sister, delivered the final blow. Katie, besides, you might have been left disabled after the accident. Then you definitely would have canceled everything, so I convinced Mom and Dad we should go while everything was still paid for. The room went dead silent. Even Mom looked shocked. My fingers trembled as I reached for the call button. The speaker crackled. Security, please. I need 4 people escorted out of my room, and I want them added to the restricted visitors list. Mom's face twisted in rage. Mom, Isabella, don't you dare. But it was too late. 3 security guards stepped into the room. Security? This patient is recovering from major surgery. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. I watched as they were led away. Mom's angry voice echoed down the hall. Dad's silence said everything. Katie's protests faded as they disappeared from sight. That night, I did something I should have done months ago. I opened my banking app. I canceled all the automatic payments I had set up for my family. No more monthly transfers for Katie's therapy. No more paying their utility bills. No more grocery money. I felt lighter, like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. For the first time in a long time, I could breathe. 3 weeks later, I was discharged from the hospital. When I finally got home, my apartment felt like a sanctuary. My work friends had cleaned it, stocked the fridge, even put fresh flowers on the kitchen counter. No family drama, no guilt trips, no financial demands, just peace and quiet. 1 month later, my phone buzzed, new messages from family members. Mom had taken her complaints to Facebook. Mom's post, "My own daughter has abandoned us in our time of need. After everything we've done for her, she has turned her back on her poor, struggling parents. Katie can't find work. Bills are piling up. And Isabella won't even return our calls." Some of her friends who didn't know the truth jumped in. How terrible. After raising such an ungrateful child, family should always come first. I'll pray for your daughter to come back to you. I was about to close the app when a new comment popped up. "Marry my cousin, Aunt Linda. Are you seriously playing the victim? You left Isabella alone in the hospital after her car accident to go on a vacation she paid for. You took Katie instead of supporting your injured daughter. We all know what really happened." Then more relatives started commenting. They exposed everything. How I had supported my parents for a year while Katie refused to work. How I had planned the Rome trip as a gift. How they visited me in the hospital while my own parents were off touring Europe. 3 days later, the post disappeared. But by then, screenshots were already spreading in the family group chat. Mom's plan to make herself the victim had backfired completely. 4 months after the accident, I walked into my office without my cane for the first time. My entire team was gathered around my desk. A massive cake sat in the center. "Welcome back, Isabella." Tears filled my eyes. For the first time in years, I felt truly appreciated. That night, sitting in my apartment, I opened my laptop. I booked a trip to Rome, luxury hotel. Private tours? The same cheese and wine tastings. But this time, for myself. My phone buzzed with a new message from Mom. "We miss you." I deleted it without responding. Instead, I turned back to my laptop and smiled. Single room this time. Click booked. Final thought. Sometimes, the family you choose, friends, co-workers, and kind strangers, matter more than the family you're born into. And sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away.